Hey, welcome back. You wouldn't believe who I've got sitting across from me. It's Vic Neufeld, the CEO of Aphria. Vic, welcome back.
It's great to be back, James.
Vic, all kinds of rumors flying around out there. I want to start with the elephant in the room, which is my favorite place, my favorite pet. There's a rumor that the company that owns Marlboro cigarettes is contemplating a relationship with Aphria. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I've read about it.
You've read about it, eh? Where do these rumors keep coming from?
Oh, I tell you. Listen, James, I think your viewers and listeners need to understand something. And I've said this a long, long time ago. As our space called medical cannabis grows up and the advent of recreational gets closer and closer, and now it's literally days, it's next Wednesday, you are going to be seeing a greater level of interest and dialogue, conversations, and some are going to be far-fetched and some could be real. But you're going to see entry points from different global sectors that have the same sort of consumer attitude when it comes to the entertainment dollar.
Right.
We have heard about Molson Coors, the Constellation, which is obviously a done deal. Lots of rumors abounding a month ago on Diageo.
Now, you've got some people from Diageo working in your universe, don't you?
Oh yeah, some very bright people too.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great add to my bench strength of who these are. And
Does that necessarily default to a relationship with Diageo?
it has networking capabilities, and calls are easier to be made, quite frankly, but there is no preference when those sort of skill sets and leaders are brought on board. I think people have taken that and connected some dots. Good for them, good for my stock price, but I'm not here to talk about Diageo, Molson Coors, Coke.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you think that the journalists who are originating these stories without quoting sources need to be held accountable more so than they are, in view of the fact that it's the retail investor who's actually wandering into these rumors and buying stock on the rumor and then getting hurt when they sell off when people realize, it was just a rumor?
Oh, that's such a great question. That question should have been asked many, many months ago. But let's not forget, some licensed producers actually propel some of those stories too, for whatever their own reasons. As you said, they're blips. They're up and then they're down. When Aphria acts on something, we will release and communicate the facts, not the rumors, suspicions, anecdotals. So I just want to circle back and finish off what I was trying to say earlier. There are many global industry leaders in respective sectors A, B, and C. And yes, tobacco is one of them, spirits is one, wines are one, but various beverages, not just beer companies, by the way. The energy drinks, the utility drinks, the post-recovery drinks, the juices. I'm not here to talk about Gatorade versus Powerade, Pepsi, Coke, but there are a host of vertical line extensions of products where the consumer profile and their wants are very synergistic to having certain cannabinoids infused in them. And so back to your question, the Altria messaging from the newspaper reporter, she must have been Googling and trolling the internet and found stuff.
Speculation.
Yeah, stuff.
All right.
And posted it.
Well, we won't do it the favor of further perpetuation by belaboring the point. Let's move on to your first quarter results. A spectacular 117% increase in revenue year over year. How did that happen?
A lot of hard work.
Okay. Good sales team, apparently.
Sales team, growing team, quality team, marketing team. In this case, it was all my professional outreach. It's just a culmination of having the right leaders, the right people, making things happen. And again, having the passion and the commitment to doing things right. And not everything is right in life. So when you hit an obstacle, the team comes together and you try to form solutions. And solutions that are doable and sustainable so you don't fall into that same sort of up and down situation like all LPs are having right now in terms of filling the provincial regulator needs.
Okay. net income increased by more than 40%. So
That's a few good bucks.
margins going up as cost of production goes down. Is that the essence of that story?
Yeah, but we also had some great investment increases in value quarter to quarter. It's mark to market pricing. So we've made some great strategic investments. As you well know, in the quarter, we also moved our Liberty Health Science shares and recognized the gain on that. Our way back in the day, one of the original investors in Tokyo Smoke, then Doja acquisition, then Haiku, and eventually Canopy. We saw the benefits and the strengths of the Gertner family way back when. And so we were part of their early journey. And when they hooked up with Canopy and the Canopy Constellation share price, we took it for the ride. And we had a tremendous gain there also.
Okay, so some of these are one-time gains based on investments. Okay.
But if you look quarter after quarter, we constantly have gains. So I think we're pretty good investors in our space where there's strategic as well as financial wins.
Right. Okay, so now tell me about the, what's going to change for Aphria on Wednesday?
5 more brands that are being packed and shipped out of Leamington, Ontario to all the provincial regulators. I think if one understands the vision of Aphria, being a leader, Canada Medical, absolutely going to be hitting it out of the park when it comes to brand identity and consumer friendliness to my 5 brands. And then globally also what we're doing in the global footprint. There's nothing really going to happen other than a lot more leaders coming on board. And that drives the bus, James. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm the boy wonder. I have a lot of strong people in various departments, and I'm still thin. So we are on the march.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically. So whether it's another Diageo, somebody from the beer industry, again, I'm searching and seeking the right skill set, the right chemistry, the right areas of discipline that they bring to the table so that we can continue to grow. The speed of yesterday was fast. The speed tomorrow is going to be even faster. If we start looking just at the Canadian space, medical and rec, then the global footprint, and eventually the US of A footprint, there's so much. And if you're not on top of your game, you're going to strike out. And all 3 of these geographies are very important to our vision.
Okay, I'm curious as to, from your perspective as a former large healthcare executive, we haven't really seen a big investment from Big Pharma, except for if you consider the Novartis partnership with Tilray, that sort of thing. And I look at Aphria and I think, well, Aphria strikes me as the most perfectly poised to make that kind of an arrangement just by virtue of your past, but still nothing. And is that, I don't want to generate more speculation on a rumor, but is that a reasonable sort of perspective to have looking from the outside into Aphria?
It is. Pharma, let's not forget, Pharma really has the scripted side, the opiates of pain management relief, where certain forms of medical cannabis are very well suited to be an alternate replacement. But there's also the consumer health side to a number of these global pharma players. We're referring it to as health and wellness, where again, cannabis-infused products can come to play. I mentioned earlier, as an example, as a placeholder, post-workout. You take a vitaminized water, et cetera. Well, it may be now infused with certain elements of CBD for a quicker recovery on a strenuous post-workout. Again, Gatorade, Powerades, certain of those sort of utility drinks that are health conscious, with electrolytes, whether melatonin, it goes on and on. So I won't belabor that point. But when you go back to pharma, it's just not the RX scripted side, it's also their consumer health side. Most of them have some very dominant, whether it's Bayer, J&J, Novartis I think is now out except for their eye care products, nutritional based eye care. They are there and they're looking. The problem with pharma, more from the scripted side, very little can be patented. And if If certain organizations think they can patent it, trust me, I think there's tremendous challenges that are going to be coming forward. So the investment of time, energy, and money to get to that stage without patentability is not shutting the door on pharma, but very much so cautioning them because it's not part of their DNA. So therefore, and as you have read and will continue to read, two major new drug discovery programs that we have been supportive of and funding for over 2 years now, MedLab out of Australia and Dr. Guy Chamberlain being Tetra out of McGill University on different pathways of bringing forward the clinical. And this is what pharma is looking and waiting for. Who can drive the bus forward where there is true FDA acceptance, whether it's FDA in the US, in the EU, and ultimately Health Canada. Just start reading and understand and following some of the evolution, very transformational, where they're at in terms of the flow of clinicals. I mean, one is already entering clinical phase 3. Once you get to that and you get a DIN, a drug identification number in Canada, for example, or FDA approval like GW Pharma did, when you get to that level, you now have entered the big leagues, and therein lies the patentability, because it's all your clinical studies, all your protocols that are followed. That's when you're really going to get the ears perked up of the Novartis, the Sandoz, Sanofi's, the J&J's, the Bayers, et cetera, et cetera.
So then the big pharma DNA, more or less, in many respects, they let smaller companies develop drugs through the FDA trial process, and then if they're successful, they make an acquisition. They don't like to take on the risk and the expense of the drug development phase because it negatively impacts the share price if it's not successful, thereby increasing their cost of capital. Is that sort of the mindset?
Absolutely correct. So
Okay.
I've used this expression in the past, I'll repeat. It's like Goldcorp, Barrick. They look at exploratory mining companies as they're go around the world and search for a new gold mine, copper mine, silver mine.
Okay.
And once you get to a certain level and it's a proven or about to be proven, then they swoop in. And they do pay a premium at that point in time, but they've de-risked a lot of capital and human efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what's happening here. It's not about MedLab in Australia taking this in market globally. It's an R&D company. It's full of rocket scientists that have really latched onto the structures of various cannabinoids that can bring forward an alternative treatment to drug A, B, and C,
Right.
with patentability. And then it just isn't pharma, though. It's also the biotech companies who truly are more risk takers when it comes to entry points of this nature. So from an Aphria perspective, we've got 2 funded assets for over 2 years. There's no ROI on it. There's no revenue. It's all in incubation. But once you get to that level and you strike success, and both are down pathways that are very exciting, and there's been no obstacles that were insurmountable, that's when you hit home runs.
Okay.
In a very meaningful way.
Okay, so we've got 4 questions here from Facebook users who
my-
we promised we'd ask and see if you'd care to answer them. Colin McKill says, "Would love to hear about canceling supply agreement with Namaste. Did Quebec apply pressure to the situation?"
We are not canceling supply agreements with those entities that have proven themselves to us and have aligned their interests with our interests. You have to understand, James, by May, June of 2019, when our 2 major supply agreements kick in, we'll be on a path of in excess of 20,000 kilos a month. That's a completion of Part 4, Part 5 expansions, retrofit of Aphria Diamond. We're at 2.5 million square feet of greenhouse, 500,000 of infrastructure. We're capable of producing far more than the Canadian market, whether medical and or recreational, will require from us. Unless, of course, we're going to be trying to get 50% of the rec space, rec market in Canada, which would be just an irrational target for any licensed producer. So, no, those 2, because they come on stream and the takeoff agreements are when we are in a capacity mode of significant, and this is not conjecture and speculation or fancy press releases. We will be delivering that much harvest. That's the confidence I have in my team in Leamington.
Okay. I'm going to skip these two because they're...
By the way, the margins on those two wholesale supply agreements are significant.
Okay.
They're north of 50%. And this is wholesale, meaning there's no cost below the line. It's a secondary strategy, but it's very profitable.
Okay. And then the second question that I think is appropriate, the other two are not quite, so I'm going to skip those for now. Will Aphria trade on a U.S. exchange soon?
Hopefully. It's been on our radar as one of our objectives. There's been a lot on our table.
Sure.
Our vision has changed 18 times in the last 18 months. It's always growing, growing, growing. But when you look at uplisting to a major U.S. exchange, it's part of growth, maturity.
Mm-hmm.
The expression more eyeballs, more institutionals. But when you look at who we are in the U.S., what I've done with my Liberty shares and other opportunities where the capital structures are in full compliancy with the TSX-5, as well as any U.S. regulatory body with oversight. Once you understand where we're going there, and being first to market when the CBD hemp farm bill comes alive with Trump's signature before Christmas, then CBD source from cannabis, which ultimately will lead to THC source from cannabis, medical, nationwide, federally. Now you can cross state borders. When you look at parking these sort of U.S. assets, it makes sense for us to have some sort of visibility on the U.S. exchange.
Right.
And so
Okay.
it's the objective, but unlike other licensed producers, James, when I press release, it's based on facts. Have you ever heard a bride-to-be and a groom-to-be pre-announce a wedding date without an engagement?
Good point.
No. The answer is no.
That's
Good
right.
point.
Okay, well, that's great, Vic. We'll leave it there for now, and we'll come back to you in due course as usual, and thanks very much for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thanks again, James.